2025 has been a great year for gaming, and one of the Game of the Year contenders I was just not expecting at all was Arc Raiders, an extraction shooter that has taken off to heights that just never could have been anticipated. It's reaching heights that I'm sure Bungie is jealous of, especially since they're making a game that's been referred to as Arc Raiders. But regardless, Arc Raiders right now has peaked at almost 500,000 players on Steam. It has made a massive impression, so much so that there is debates happening, in regards to its Game of the Year potential. We had a infamous streamer, Shroud, making the case for why it deserves it over a game like Expedition 33, and I just don't think there's a conversation here. I think Expedition is winning this no matter what. But Shroud said this in the video, and it was controversial. It got the likes of Asmongold responding and many other within the gaming community.
Game of the Year, by the way. Do not let that Expedition game win Game of the Year. Do not let it. Absolutely do not. We all have to band together to make this game win. Us multiplayer gamers are the minority, okay? We are the minority being multiplayer gamers, but I believe we can win. I believe.
And look, the truth is that there is a multiplayer category, and I think Arc Raiders can make a case for winning that award, and it probably will win it by a mile. The thing is, though, Game of the Year, though, a lot of multiplayer titles over the years have been just total slop. I mean, that's the best way to say, and a lot of them have massive ups and downs. I think the last time we saw a Game of the Year award go to a multiplayer game, it was like Overwatch, and even then, I don't know if that's aged all that well. Regardless, though, that was the conversation surrounding Arc Raiders, and look, the review scores of this game were extremely amazing. It was at 94 out of 100, but something has changed over the last couple of days, and this has now caused a lot of debate and conversation because Arc Raiders is being attacked over a minor part of the experience, and it is AI voice acting that is included in the experience, and that's why this review score went from a 94 out of 100 down to about 87, 88. Now it's gone up a little bit because of one single review, and it's specifically this one coming from Eurogamer, a 2 out of 5, and we'll get to that in a second, but it's important to understand that Embark Studios, the developer behind Arc Raiders, have been attacked over AI voice acting beforehand, and this was something that people were already talking before Arc Raiders launched, saying that this was probably going to be coming back. Text-to-speech voices and machine learning robots mean Arc Raiders has an AI problem, or does it? And it does. It has an AI problem, and it has now emerged into a role that it could disrupt it from winning Game of the Year awards, because originally this score at 94 to 100 made it one of the most best reviewed multiplayer games of all time. That title is no longer here really because of this review. But yes, Embark Studios was attacked over this with their last experience, the finals, and it uses AI text-to-speech because it can produce lines in just a matter of hours rather than months, baffles actual voice actors. Why the F do AI voice people act like hiring voice actors is some kind of arcane ritual? The thing is, they did hire voice actors. There's nuance to this conversation. The problem is that you're not going to be getting that when it comes to AI. Nowadays, it really is. Anybody who uses AI, there's a fierce opposition against that because of what it could entail in the future. And I can understand some of those concerns, but again, there just seems to be a fine line with many people believing that you use AI automatically bad, you don't use AI automatically good, if you get kind of what I'm trying to say here. But specifically Eurogamer, this is the controversial review which has been talked extensively over the last 24 hours. Arc Raiders review a smartly designed extraction shooter marred by one inexcusable decision, gross in the machine. And it must be mentioned, this review for the most part is talking, glowingly about Arc Raiders. And without the AI thing here, it sounds like they're probably going to give the game an 8, 9, maybe even a 10 out of 10 score, which we've seen thus far from the majority of reviewers, but that's not what has happened. Rick Lane of Eurogamer giving it a 2 out of 5, a 4 out of 10, totally tanking the score, and that really could have, ramifications in this Game of the Year conversation, which is going to be emerging in the next couple of days and weeks. Rich PvE combat and unusually friendly community make Arc Raiders a more approachable extraction shooter than most, but Embark Studios' continued use of AI voice generation is a black mark against its reputation. And like I said, the majority of this review is glowing about everything about the experience, which is what we've been seeing from the vast majority of other reviews. But about a third of this review, I would say, concentrates specifically on the AI role here. So it says, like in Bark's previous shooter, The Finals, Arc Raiders displays considered design. Also like The Finals, the design is overshadowed by the specter of AI. Arc Raiders uses machine learning algorithms for its arc animations and text-to-speech based performances generated from the voices of real actors. While I am deeply skeptical of AI use in game development, it's important to emphasize the nuances at play here. For starters, these two techniques are not the same. While Embark has further argued less convincingly that TTS is different from generative AI tools like ChatGPT, certainly machine learning is not new technology in video games, experimented with by developers at least since the black and white days. The animations of the arcs, how they adapt to environments and react to being shot, are based on similar principles to black and white's creature AI, and this is normal. Having NPCs, enemies running around, you need AI to be developed for stuff like that to be immersive, for it to be real. And that's one of the things that has been praised with Arc Raiders, is that the AI is extremely smart and it works extremely well here in this PvE game, or PvEVP game. Now, Embark has attempted to create emergent behaviors in its enemies through reinforcement learning, enabling them to both move and react to terrain and player behavior in highly realistic ways, which has gotten immense praise so far from gamers and, critics. It's an interesting technology, and the effects it produces during matches are undeniably convincing. The same, and this is where we get into the critical territory, which I guess tanks the score down to a 4. The same cannot be said about Embark's generated voice lines, which are aggressively mediocre and a stain on the experience. And just for you to understand, this is kind of what they're referring to. I found out somebody has a clip. I just wanted to show you it so you kind of understand. This is, I'm assuming, one of the AI voices.
It clearly didn't stop you. Heard you found your way to those loot spots. Good. It'll be a while before everything's patched up, so every bit helps. A swarm of disoriented wasps crashed near one of our skylights. I need you to help thin Ark's ranks before any more accidents happen, and gather some extra sturdy materials to fix the damage.
It just adds, I guess, a little bit more dialogue to these little conversations, which are kind of meaningless in a game where that's not the focus. But I do understand the concerns with how this could be used in the future, but I also do see the benefits that some people have been bringing up. There is an argument to be had that having different, unique dialogue every single time you have an interaction like this, it adds to the immersion with the experience. But again, that's nuance that I just don't think a lot of people really want to entertain at this point, especially the reviewer behind this article. And they continue to say, while speaking characters are mostly limited to traders, as I just showed in that clip, though player characters also vocalize emotes and pings during matches, when you do speak with them, their voices are flat and emotionally blunted. And to be fair, that last conversation, it didn't really mean much to me, because that's kind of the way I see all these conversations no matter what. But I guess here in this instance, Eurogamer's making the argument not having a human voice behind it is automatically bad. But there is nuance to this we'll get into a second, because it's not just entirely, this is just an AI voice. Voice actors are being paid for stuff like this. When you do speak with them, their voices are flat and emotionally blunted, aside from the occasional bizarre inflection that reveals their robotic roots. It's telling that the sole memorable character in Arc Raiders is a rooster incapable of speech. Although in any of these extraction live service shooters, people aren't talking usually about the characters at all. But Embark claims it uses AI voices so the studio can implement ideas quicker, as I showed in that article from The Finals. Yeah, they're infamous for that. It goes on to mention that so they can create new voice lines in hours rather than having to go through the longer process of manually re-recording and therefore rehiring actors. But NPC voices are not central to the experience, so I don't think this argument holds water. Even if it did, Arc Raiders' launch has been so successful, Embark could probably hire a team of live and voice actors and still make gargantuan amounts of profit while benefiting from more memorable characters as a result. At the same time, it's Embark's use of AI voices sufficient to compromise the game, given they are only a smart part of the experience. I mulled over this for a while, and the more I thought about it, the angrier I became, because yes, using AI voices does compromise Arc Raiders, not just ethically, but artistically too. And then he gives an example about the overall atmosphere of the actual game and how it doesn't make sense in the context of it. And he says, let's start with the obvious point, that Arc Raiders is set in a world where humanity has been driven underground by a race of hostile robots. The contradiction here between Arc Raiders' themes and the manner of its creation is so glaring that it makes me want to scream. You made a game about the tragedy of humans being replaced by robots while replacing humans with robots. Embark, it displays a lack of awareness, or worse, willful ignorance of Arc Raiders' own semantics. But what really bakes my noodle is that much of what makes Arc Raiders compelling in the first place derives from human voices, and he talks about an interaction he had with another player in the game, not an actual NPC. The guy I mentioned in the onset, Mr. Looking for Lemons, it wasn't just what he said that stuck with me, it was the way he said it, irrepressibly, cheerful, and endearingly goofy, with all the R's and L's drawn out. It was as distinctive and memorable as the way Matt Berry says New York City and what we do in the shadows. In fact, I tried to think of an older or an actor I could compare him to, but failed because nobody else would have said it like that. Arc Raiders has facilitated millions of similar interactions since launch, but only makes Embark's use of AI voices more abhorrent. For Arc Raiders to ride the wave of human sociability all the way in the bank while also being so contemptuous of the thing that makes us social animals in its own workflow, carving up human voices and reassembling them like a digital Victor Frankenstein, demonstrates a lack of artistic integrity that I find impossible to ignore. However smartly designed Arc Raiders is, I cannot recommend it because Embark does not value the thing that makes it special, and that is why they ultimately gave the game 2 out of 5 stars and has tanked the overall score. And yes, it does matter. These review scores do matter. This is a conversation that people have constantly, like, I don't listen to Eurogamer, but guess what? This is something that's used in marketing materials. It decides Game of the Year awards, and it has been in the past used for bonuses for developers. So this does matter. And also, these review outlets still have power. This is political power. This is a political statement that they're making with this review. We have seen this constantly from this AAA games industry, and it has been met to the ire of a lot of the gaming community as well, but it's also been very divisive. Some saying that this has merit and needs to be in reviews like this, some saying it doesn't. We've seen over the years, we've had reviews like Screen Rant last year notoriously gave lower scores to, I think it was Black Myth Wukong, because of its lack of diversity and the way that it treated female representation. We also had a Kotaku review of the PlayStation 5 in which they went on a tangent about, I guess, old white presidents, US presidents. I don't know why that matters in the context of that, but that's the thing that we do see from this AAA games industry. And a lot of the reporting that we see from these institutional legacy media outlets like Eurogamer, IGN, Kotaku, Polygon, and so on and so forth. This is the environment that we live in. And it is worth mentioning the reviewer behind this of Eurogamer notoriously gave Concord a higher score, 3 out of 5 stars. And just seeing that, comparing the two, it really is an ugly look. And it's baffling that this is, even if they have complaints, even if they have an issue with the AI, going all the way down to 2 out of 5 stars just feels deliberate, like they wanted to make a statement. And look, I'm just thinking of it right now that this AAA games industry, we've seen this countless times, countless examples of reviews that really just had nothing to do with the actual, feeling with the experience. Hogwarts Legacy as well, that's another one in which we had outlets like Wired giving it a 1 or 2 stars out of 10 just because they didn't like the politics behind the overall creator of the Harry Potter universe. But more specifically with Eurogamer as an outlet, they also did the same thing with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 earlier this year. This was a different reviewer, but they went on a tangent here about Daniel Vavra, the game director over there at Warhorse Studios, and they made a big statement about the fact of his politics and, I guess, GG, if you don't know that incident that happened years ago, and they gave it a lower review score because of that. And that ultimately is something that a lot of gamers are fighting, and also why they want power to be stripped from these outlets, and also wanting these aggregators to stop counting reviews like this. But unfortunately, it has only continued. But it is worth mentioning that somebody did bring this up in the Eurogamer comment section of this, saying, so is it a review or a political statement? Can we have 2 scores? And the staff member of Eurogamer responding, no. Yeah. So for what it's worth, why I'm saying there is nuance to this, and people need to understand that this has been addressed by Embark Studios. There's a lot more going on here than just, oh, they're using AI automatically bad. So this is an article coming from Polygon, and yes, they were one of the first outlets being upset about this. Arc Raiders' use of AI voices is the finals controversy all over again. And yeah, it definitely sounds like it is. Specifically, it's mentioned on the game's Steam page a disclosure about AI-generated content, draws comparisons. During the development process, we may use procedural and AI-based tools to assist with content creation. In all such cases, the final product reflects the creativity and expression of our own development team. The Finals, a multiplayer first-person shooter that gained prominence for its smooth gunplay and Battlefield-style destructive environments, because it comes from a lot of Battlefield ex-EA DICE developers, drew backlash for its use of AI before it even released. During its October 2023 open beta, the game's audio designer mentioned in a podcast, and this is what's referred in the Eurogamer piece, that Embark used AI tools in developing its vocal tracks. Immediately, voice actors and game developers alike slammed the decision, saying AI vocal tracks were of notably lower quality than human ones, and that the use of the practice replaced voice acting jobs. In response, Embark Studios told IGN in a statement that it hired professional voice actors, and this is the nuance that needs to be mentioned, to record voice lines for the finals, but used text-to-speech tools to create additional lines based on those voices. The studio's rationale at the time was that it significantly speeds up the production process. Some people are in favor with that, a lot of people obviously not. Now, speaking to PC Games, and this week we got another response about this. Arc Raiders design director Virgil Watkins said the game in no way uses generative AI whatsoever, but declined to elaborate on exactly what the content creation the Steam disclosure referred to, saying that it's not his purview. Watkins did acknowledge that the same vocal tech used in the finals was used in Arc Raiders, however, as I showed off earlier on with that one traitor in the game. As you stated, it's the same as the finals. We use that text-to-speech model. That is, we hire and contract voice actors for it. It's part of their contract that we use AI for this purpose, and that allows us to do things like our ping system, where it's capable of saying every single item name, every single location name, and compass directions. That's how we can get that without needing to have someone come in every time we create a new item for the game. And obviously the opposition would argue that they're not being paid for that, so there is a problem in here. But I think there is royalties that are factored into this fold. It's not entirely sure how the contract is, drafted up, but I do think that has to be considered with the fact that these actors are signing on for this. Now, we use a combination of recorded voice audio and audio generated VTTS tools in our games, depending on the context. A representative for Embark told Polygon, sometimes recording scenes where actors get together, allowing character chemistry and conflict to shape the outcome, is something that adds depth to our game worlds that technology cannot emulate. Other times, especially when it relates to contextual in-game actions, callouts, TTS allows us to have tailored voice overs where we otherwise wouldn't due to speed of implementation. Making games without actors isn't an end goal for Embark, and TTS technology has introduced new ways for us to work together. And the reactions to this have been very divided. We saw, this is the post that they put on their Twitter account, X account. Embark Studios' continued use of AI voice generation is a black mark against its reputation. They wanted that, and Eurogamer wanted that to be their main point of their review piece. That is the reason why they have that as the quote here. And it goes on, like I said, you can already see 1,000 responses and still many likes to this post. And one of the responses that we did get here was from Tim Sweeney, who said political opinions should go in op-ed, folks. And this is, again, the CEO of Epic Games. Somebody responded, is the dislike of AI in the context of the current harm versus potential gains political? He says yes. This technology increases human productivity in some areas by integer multiples, and views on whether this is a net good and should be rewarded or bad and should be fought against are speculative and generally distributed along political lines, and that's mostly true. Since the author states the pessimistic case, I'll put the optimistic one here. Game developers compete to build the best games in order to attract gamers. When tech increases productivity, competition leads to building better games rather than employing fewer people. This person hit back, saying AI voices, though, puts voice actors out of work. The models trained on stolen art are also a concern. Sweeney says, I think there's an even bigger opportunity for in-game voice and voice actors. Instead of games having a few dozen or 100 lines of pre-recorded dialogue, how about infinite, context-sensitive, personality-reflecting dialogue based on and tuned by human voice actors? And that's the plus side of this. I've always found pre-written lines of fixed dialogue super limiting. It was painful to write the text dialogue in ZZT in 1991 after writing more dynamically composed text adventure games in the 80s. AI dialogue generation plus human personality in tuning could totally transform gaming. And that is the positive. That's the optimistic side of this conversation. And again, we saw a lot of people very critical of this piece from Eurogamer. Many content creators, Westy saying, I'm also not a fan of the use of AI voice TTS stuff in Arc Raiders, but it doesn't diminish my experience in any discernible way. It's perhaps the only blemish on an experience that is currently unparalleled in the space. We also saw Tactical Brit saying, while I'm not a fan of AI use, it's not fair to say that it hasn't been ethically applied here for the benefit of the game. Voice actors in question consented and got paid for this work. Mischief, a YouTuber, saying Embark has transparently utilized AI voice acting in the finals and Arc Raiders for years, marking an entire game down because of this tech, even when it's consensual and the voice actors are financially compensated, is clearly irrational. Virtue signaling like this helps no one. And that's kind of the big thing here. They're making a statement with Arc Raiders, but there's been a number of other games that have already released with those same disclosures, some of which that are using generative AI, such as Call of Duty. And I believe Eurogamer did a review for like Black Ops 6 and still gave it a 3 stars out of 5. And that is going to be the expectation moving forward. Any game that has an AI disclosure, you're going to expect Eurogamer to give them massive marks off. But we have not seen that outside of this example here with Arc Raiders. I'm very curious to see how that mentality, I guess, is moved forward with them as a reviewer. And this is one thing that people are going to continue to bring up. Then we saw Big Fry, another YouTuber, saying, I'm as against AI as the next one, but this one isn't it. The voice acting talent agreed to their voices being used in that manner, did they not? And Pirate Software, of all people, even jumped in disagreeing with this review, saying 2 out of 5 for Arc Raiders and his absurdly low review score. I've never cared much for the extraction shooter genre, blah, 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 blah. Arc Raiders is a blast and made me rethink how fun these kind of games can be. I hate generative AI because artists get ripped off when training data includes their work without pay. The voice actors hired for this game were paid and agreed to have their voices used for further lines through a TTS system. It was part of their contract, and that is their agreement to make. And indeed, one of the biggest streamers in the world, Asmongold, really going in on Eurogamer, saying it will be a wonderful day when I get to farm your company because they do layoffs. You know it's coming. Everyone knows that you're going home soon. And he furthermore had some thoughts that he shared on stream.
What I find to be funny is that these people want to make AI the reason why they're going to give this game a 2-star rating. Arc Raiders is a phenomenal, amazing game. Like, I know that obviously I've memed about it and talked about how it's not better than Expedition 33, but it's absolutely just because I don't think it's better than Expedition 33 doesn't mean that I don't think it's an amazing game. I think it's an incredible game. So that's what I think about.
Yeah, so he's right here. I do think that Arc Raiders has a case to be made for Game of the Year conversation. I don't think it's going to win out because I think Expedition 33 is that good. Obviously, subjective opinion. I've heard many people making the case for other games throughout the year. It's been a great year for gaming in 2025. But the real thing here with AI that needs to be discussed is, where do you draw the line? You have other examples, other developers that are using generative AI. That is considered far worse than what's happening here with Embark Studios and Arc Raiders. Where do you draw the line? And Eurogamer has made an example out of this game. Now the question is, do they carry that same weight with other experiences, like the upcoming Call of Duty game, which, yes, probably does feature generative AI based on all the reports that emerged over the last couple of years? But again, there is a counter side of this. Many people actually praising Eurogamer for this. We saw this from one user, that boy Aqua, saying, after reading the review, it seems like the reviewer really liked the game, but couldn't get past not just how bad the AI implementation was, but how brutally it contradicts the game's themes and strengths. While 2 out of 5 is harsh, it's completely fair. This is what actually being against AI looks like. The fact that we're only against AI when the end product is good just shows a willingness to consume slop, and yeah, thousands of likes in agreement with this perspective. Another user saying, anyone upset at this review fails to realize that games are an artistic medium. Of effing course, the use of AI generated content is going to be taken into consideration for the score. And over on Blue Sky, there's been many calls to boycott Arc Raiders at this point. Luke Planet, games journalist, saying Arc Raiders alters same story. And as Plunkett writes here, any studio making use of generative AI is sending a very clear message. They don't care about the cataclysmic effects AI is having on their own industry. They don't care that so much of AI content is slop. They don't care that millions of people out there who are their prospective fans and customers are wholly opposed to its use. Look, there is a difference. There's a lot of conflation here between generative AI and the AI voice acting. There is a difference. But there is also a real conversation that needs to be had about corporations, especially AAA games industry. A lot of these companies, they don't care about people. Their focus is on money, and that's it. That's why when I hear about these corporations doing something that is in their financial interest, that's obvious, because anything that we've seen in the past has been performative. Anytime they're making, political statements or supporting causes, it's performative. They do not have a conscience. Their focus is on money, and people need to understand that, especially critics like this. Another individual saying, "I'll be the fun, please don't play Arc Raiders, do better, play a game with real voice acting." Another user, "Heads up for folks playing Arc Raiders, Embark has openly stated in an interview with Games Radar Plus that the game's uses the same AI voice tech as the finals, and the CEO has talked about using AI to generate models from YouTube rips, which has not happened, and I'm not aware of this interview at all yet. If you're anti-AI, you should not be playing Arc Raiders." Another individual saying, "Hey, so are y'all actually anti-AI? Were you just anti-AI until it actually required something new, not playing Arc Raiders?" And then the last one I'll show here: "Makes me sad to see people eating up Arc Raiders after it was revealed they were using AI voices." So the conversation from Arc Raiders has gone from this is, up for there with Game of the Year in 2025, up against the likes of, Expedition 33, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, to now it's a conversation of, does it deserve to be review bombed over its use of AI voices, even though the voice actors have been paid and they knew about this in their contracts? I guess it's more of a conversation about what Arc Raiders represents moving forward, and should that be factored into the review scores. Personally, myself, I don't really think so. I think that there is an ethical way to go about this, and I think Embark has done that, but I don't think nuance is something that a lot of people want to have with this, because a lot of people believe that letting AI get any little bit of, acceptance in the AAA games industry will entail so much more further pain, especially in regards to jobs within this industry moving forward. And I can understand that perspective, but I also look at developers, publishers like Activision, who so far haven't felt that brunt force yet, and they're continuing down that road and have basically said they don't care at all. So making an example out of an independent studio like Embark Studios, that's a bold choice on Eurogamer. And there certainly is now an expectation that Eurogamer is going to be factoring this into their reviews moving forward. Who's to say maybe other outlets do the same as well? Very interesting, but it also shows the fact that legacy media, especially with these politically driven reviews, are drawing a lot of criticism. And look, there is still power to these outlets right now. That is something that will exist moving forward because of aggregators like OpenCritic and Metacritic, which publishers so desperately want those positive review scores so they can throw them in marketing material and such. So anyway, this is definitely a very divided, topic. A lot of people have different opinions on AI. We've heard other creatives in this medium like Hideo Kojima say that AI can be used as a tool, and that's really a perspective that I hold. It's not something that can replace the creativity that we see from games, but it can be used as a tool to assist. But what do you feel? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about AI use in video games? Do you think Eurogamer was right to give that review score for Arc Raiders? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, but thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value. Consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.